But that's only a one-way link. And what I mean by that is I thought, oh, this links to a previous idea. Well, I can link it. So the linking is going from what I listened on just on the podcast and linking it to the real thing. The interesting thing about Roam is, again, it's easier to link. It's a much more seamless process. It's two-way. So you'll actually see on the bottom of your note, so like, you can see linked references. You can see where it's been linked from. And if you look at this, let's shift click. Another nice thing is, as far as I'm aware, this is a feature that really needs to come to Notion, is you can't side by side. And that's that's pretty important in my workflow. Maybe you can open another Notion app, but I'm not too sure. That's the same note. Where was this from? Oh, okay, shift click that. There we go. So we can see that this is what I was talking about in my journal. I can see that it links to this article here, and I can also go from this article back to where it was linked from. And of course, you can see that these graphs are going to expand quite a bit. The other very useful thing in Roam is you don't have to be so overly conscious of what ideas you want to link. So imagine you made a page about productivity about 6 months ago, and now you're writing about productivity again, but you don't even know that those two topics are going to link in a way. Roam can take that responsibility off you a little bit. So let's find the way that we do that is through keywords. So I can turn this, Cornell note taking. So that's making a link. You make a link by using 2 square brackets. Okay. So I'm just looking for a keyword that I feel that is going to pop up in my writing quite a bit. And you can do this as well with like your particular research words and stuff. So a lot of what I talk about is studying and productivity. So active recall, right? So we'll turn that into active recall, cool. And then we can click on this, and we can see this is active recall, and then like definition or whatever. Definition. Any notes that I want to see about what active recall is, blah, 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 blah. But that's not really the main thing. The important thing is, let's see. I would have mentioned it in a previous video. Let's just go Control F. No, I didn't actually mention it in this video. Okay, so I don't actually have it on here, but the idea I wanted to get across anyway is you can have multiple articles referring to active recall, and you'll be able to see this graph and just see how these seemingly non-related topics can actually come together. And you can, the whole point of this anyway is to make sure that you don't forget about important things, which could actually give you more novel and salient ideas. Okay, so Roam recently announced its pricing. It's $15 a month. Oh, sorry, why am I typing your name? All right, let me just see that. Yes, I know it's been converted to invite only. I'm guessing they said this on Twitter. Roam Research Twitter. Now I'll give my thoughts on it as well. So where'd you find the post about it costing money? Okay, right, somewhere. Well, anyway, it's $15 a month. Okay, my thoughts. Again, it depends on what you're doing. It's more, so generally, Roam is more of a way to synthesize ideas and creatively think about what you're writing and how they all link together. It offers a little benefit, but it's really useful if you can just see it for yourself. For me, so $15 would be how many coffees? So that's about a coffee. So that'd be like 4 coffees a month. It really depends if you're going to use it a lot. Personally, for me, I think that I would pay the $15. Okay, convert from USD, whatever. 15 USD to AUD. So that's what I deal with. So 23. Okay. Yeah, that's just a next size up on a coffee. So for me, yeah, I would pay for it. That's because I feel, okay, so there's a lot of things you can talk here. I feel more productive with it, which is actually going to spur me towards writing more. And I guess another thing is like, okay, Roam takes a long time to load up, but once you're in the program, it's kind of quick and seamless. The thing I'm having with Notion is pages take a while to load sometimes. I guess they're all stored in my cache right now, but things get a little bit too deep. Just like a file folder structure system on your computer gets way too deep with, like, you have the subject, and then you have the subtopic, and then you have the assignment, and then you have the, like if you're making a presentation, pictures, documents that are research. Everything gets really hazy really quick because it's so deeply ingrained. Okay, what's this? 50% off for 21 edu. Provide evidence they've earned under 30K. That's interesting. Flowchart maker. Okay. Well, as I was saying, I would pay for it because it just makes me work more efficiently. And part of that is because of the linking feature, the multitasking thing. Of course, you can set this up with like 2 Word documents or whatever, but it's just nice when everything is kind of packaged together. And that's, I guess, why everyone's looking for that all-in-one note-taking app. Are there any questions so far about, what Roam is capable of compared to Notion or something, of anything that I've said? I guess an important distinction here is I would not particularly use this for studying. I would definitely use it for researching, for making an assignment, whether that be creative or analytical. It doesn't really matter. Roam's flexible in that way. I guess another nice thing with the multitasking is you can probably see here we've actually got a lot of pages open. We've actually got this main page, we've got active recall open, and then my journal entry. Okay. What else is there? Oh yeah, okay. Let's talk about where Notion wins now. Roam is pretty new. And the caveat with that is this is currently only a web-only app. I'm one of those people who really prefers if there is an app for a program. I don't really like dealing with the browser too much, just because it gets messed up with, like all my other tabs that are dealing with other things. I want to separate my Google searching from other stuff. So far with Roam, it's been okay since it's just one window, just like a whole application window. All right, so with Notion, it's really, really modular and developed and extensive. Particularly, the main thing that made Notion important and significant within the productivity world was the fact that you could have databases, and it's pretty much like combining note-taking word text with Excel. And I actually want to get to that point with who mentioned the Google Sheets. Google Sheets. Okay, Google Sheet Squad. Yep. Okay, so why do you like Google Sheets? We can have a discussion about that. So the lack of merging, what are you guys like talking about? The fact that you can't combine two cells together. That's interesting. I personally haven't run into that issue because, yeah, as you mentioned, it's more of a visual thing. Like, let's look at a more complex table that I have set up. Yeah, like I haven't touched this in a while. This is I'm no longer using this. I've had a cover. I don't really see a reason why you would want to connect these together. Like the way that you should be using tables in Notion is so that everything is separate. And if you really need to include extra information, just chuck it into the page or make a new column if it's something that's going to be common amongst all of these entries. Okay, yeah. Yeah, all of these note-taking apps are quite different compared to OneNote and stuff. Yeah, probably not going to need to merge there. 5 to 7. Oh, you can't merge them. All right. Yeah, I don't think it should be too bad, just like copying and pasting stuff. I get what you mean though. But yeah, that's why I actually don't. Notion, when I first got it, I was trying to put everything into Notion. So I'm seeing that you're trying to set up scheduling within Notion. I think I tried that at once. LifeOS, yeah, I tried like putting in to-dos lists and stuff that I would do every day, but it didn't work out for me. So what I have set up now is just literally just things. Can we get this up? Is it gonna work? Here it is. Oh, yeah. So I just used my things to see what's on my to-do list, and then actually I have set up this thing called GCal. If you guys have Alfred, because we're all about that productivity hype. I can actually see exactly what I have planned for the day. So currently, we're here. Can we take a look at that? Yeah, I don't think calendars really work too nice with Notion. Oh, I hate switching to see my calendar to see stuff. Yeah, I don't actually I rarely look at this. The only time I ever look at this is when I'm making like a Zoom call or something, because it's really quite easy to just make a Zoom meeting. But yeah, definitely take a look at that. So Alfred, Google Calendar, workflow. So this is the one. And I'm kind of sidetracking here, but we're all about productivity. It's this whole class anyway. Yeah, you use Fantastical, but you should be able to make it connect in a way. I mean, even like you don't have to submit entries through Alfred. I mean, I do, because I can just go GNU and it's like, I don't know, like dinner at 6 p.m. Saturday with fam or something like that. I can do it like that, which is really, really nice. But if you're using something like Fantastical, you can just set up your calendars to sync, so your Google Calendar and your Fantastical. Okay, Alfred alternative for Windows. All right, I guess we're just going to a Q&A about productivity at this point. That's all I really have to say about Roam. Just to wrap up Roam versus Notion, they serve different purposes. So definitely take some time to research the difference between the two and see if it suits you, because it is going to cost money. But yeah, most of the time students don't want to pay money. So a thing that makes this important to me and why I'd spend money on it again is because I think it's going to help me earn money in just making my ideas a little bit better and everything like that. Because you can't really put a price on that sometimes. Yeah, so for Windows, I don't use Wox. I tried Wox. Wox doesn't really work too well. What I'm using currently is Uli, I think. Is that it? It actually comes from Mac and Windows, but you can see it's a pretty close comparison. So I don't know. Spotify. We're looking pretty similar here. The thing that's really annoyed me about Windows, though, so I just bought a new Mac, is like I've been using the two systems all the time, but Windows just doesn't seem to have that edge on productivity apps and stuff. Like you can literally go anywhere around with keyboard shortcuts with Alfred and stuff, but all of these replacements for Alfred on Windows just seem to cut short a little bit. So the thing I've noticed is with Uli, and I think Wox as well, is if you said Google Chrome, it's going to open a new window in Windows. Whereas the main thing I like about Alfred is if I say Discord, it's just going to make Discord my active window. And that's super important to me. Does anyone have any questions about productivity with Notion, Anki, studying, all that sort of stuff? Nope. Surely. I guess a good thing to mention at this point is please, if you haven't already, take a look at why we are holding these charity study streams. We're trying to raise funds for the United World Schools, which is running an emergency COVID-19 response for schools in Cambodia, Myanmar, Nepal. These guys are really being hit hard by coronavirus. So we're just holding these lessons to bring awareness to this and hopefully to raise some funds for a good cause. So please take a look at that if you haven't already. I'll just post the link again in library chat. There you go. But yeah, well, if there's nothing else, can you go through your other Notion workflows? Okay, yep. So I really can't show you this one, but I did open it before. Tutoring, I just have a database of all my students and all the information I need about them. Residence calendar, this is all on Ali's video. I don't think this is really working for me anymore. So I'm going to have to look at how I'm going to keep in track of all of this. Because one of the main things about productivity systems and stuff is you want to have quick capture. The way that I'm doing that is through this app called Drafts. So essentially on my phone, on my Mac, on my watch, I can literally just open up Drafts, get to the point and write down an idea in my head. I was like, I don't know, sunsets look pretty. And then at a later date, because the idea is there, and this is that whole idea about having a second brain, is I'll come do all of this stuff at a later date and figure out where this should sit in my life. So I don't know, maybe I had a new revelation about study techniques, or like something like, I don't actually know a lot about the communication between the nervous system and other tissues, so I'll come to here, see that note, and then do what I need to and fix it up. Yeah, Evernote's good, but it costs money. Do I use Notion for note taking? I use it in the sense that I use it for keeping a track of all my active recall questions, so the Cornell note taking method. Yeah, Notion's really good for project management. I guess it's just due to that folder organization stuff. Actually, a lot of people have incorporated what they do in Notion for project management and stuff into Roam, but that requires it's got a little bit more of a learning curve to it. So you need to learn how you want to link everything together and that sort of stuff. I think you can actually do some cool things like producing a Kanban, and then we can say like Monday, Tuesday. Is it gonna work? There we go. Yep. So as you can see, Roam in its own ways is trying to be like Notion. So let's just get like a cyber simple. And let's say like task 1 on a Monday. You have all these things set up, which is nice. But realistically, I don't see myself setting anything like this up. I guess then the really good thing as well is you got that toggle feature, which is seeming to be a really important thing. In Roam, I did realize that I haven't actually talked about something, but with something like this, there's a lot of categorization, a lot of levels. Yeah, something like this, so discussion. So this gets cluttered very quickly, and it becomes really way too long sometimes. So what you can do is, the nice thing is, anything is pretty much a page. The command for Uli, I don't know, I just changed it to command space. Well, alt space in that regard for Windows. Anything is a page. So I can go shift click. Oh, get that up. Go shift. Oh, that's not going to work. Oh, yeah. Shift and drag, not working. Okay, anyway, you can click on the dot point, and it'll open up its own page, which means you can work like in each of its own parts. So particularly here, the discussion gets a little bit lengthy. I might want to deal with that separately. This is, yeah, just something that doesn't exist in Notion. And I think, really, if Notion gets its head over mainly two things, PDFs suck in Notion. So let's say, like, Isaac and I were talking about this. Look, it just takes forever to load. It doesn't look nice. I can't zoom in a feasible, easy way. It's just a mess. It's really not nice. And you can even tell that it's still taking time to load every time. So 2, 3, 4. And even the PDF doesn't load it all at once. It's loading as it goes. And you can see by my scroll, it just keeps shooting off because this hasn't loaded in time. It's not a nice, pleasant experience. However, Roam actually doesn't even have any way for you to put in images or PDFs. So it's at its current stage and it's really quite new. It's just about taking notes, not study notes, like other notes, things that you're developing an idea with. Draft is not possible for Windows. Okay, yeah, this is that interesting discussion I was just mentioning before. Windows just seems like, I mean, I don't spend as much time on Windows anymore. I do spend still some time on it, but I haven't seen some good solutions for Windows. And I guess like what I do in that regard is I'll just search up drafts alternative, or like, yeah, you can see it's right there. That's not always going to be the best thing, but there'll be something. Again, yeah, you can use Evernote and OneNote and stuff, and even Roam Research really. But Roam Research takes too long, and then it's just breaking apart the idea of quick capture. You wanna get that idea that you've just had in your head onto paper. And actually, my my memorization of things has become quite bad because of that. But it means I feel a little bit more relaxed as well. Just write down all the things that are super important. Okay, talk and show other productivity apps. What's my set? Well, Superhuman for one, but this is a really niche thing. It costs quite a lot of money, but for me, again, the time that I save here is going to allow me to make money in other ways. All right, thanks, Tempest. I'm all about those keyboard shortcuts and micro efficiencies as well. Okay. So drafts is one. Notability, of course, because I have an iPad. And it's just nice to have the Mac version because it just syncs up nicely. I've got things, as I previously mentioned. And yeah, tell me what you want me to look more into. So we got things as well. We got Notion and we got Roam. And I think that's all I've got. I don't know, let's see. Mm-hmm. Yep. That'd be it for me. My Anki setup. Okay. I did slightly mention this before, and I'm in the process of transitioning to a new method since experimenting with Anki, you run into a lot of problems all the time, I find. Mm-hmm. So, okay. Can I find a card that works? Okay, this is brilliant. So what we're looking at here is this new thing, my Minecraft world setup. I actually run Minecraft servers as a business, so that's funny. Okay, so in Anki, I have these things called close overlappers. And essentially, it's a more effective way of learning lists. Anki is not currently set up in a nice way for you to learn this. If you wanted to set up something like this for yourself, where you tested yourself for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you're going to have to make a new card every time and just close delete. And what I mean by close delete, let's create a card. No, we've actually got one here. So Discord. So close deletion is like this. So you can see that there's square brackets. I have a little hint saying small or large, and I have to fill in the blank. So close deletions are just fill in the blank. So that's the precedent is not. So you can just copy your notes and actually literally just copy something out. So large. There we go. Cool. So I'm good with that question. I'll see it in 7 days. Okay, this is really good. So what are the there's a typo. What are the steps of the renin-aldosterone system? Well, of course, and like many things in medicine, biology, maybe even chemistry, all the content-based subjects in comparison to the skill-based subjects like more like physics and especially mathematics, you're going to have to remember this one way and another. And there's this principle in Anki that you want to keep the minimum information principle, which means you don't want to include a lot of information within a card, because you could say, if you had if let's say you had to remember all steps 1 to 6, and you keep getting step 4 wrong, well, then you're not going to be able to fix up that problem because you keep dealing with the other steps. So it's nice to just have a card for step 4 itself, and you can improve on just that little area. And what that also means is you're going to spend less time reviewing your cards, because instead of repeating the whole 6 steps when only step 4 was a problem, you're just going to deal with the problem at its source. Okay, so this is going to release more angiotensin from the liver. Yeah, renin. Sorry, I was wrong. That must be the next step. Oh, this was just me showing off how it worked. Okay. So we're taking a look at Anki, and yeah, this is pretty much my Anki setup. So if we're looking at what I'm dealing with now, I've got MMed, chemistry, biology, and MDSC, which I'm not really worried about. But MMed is the most intense right now. Now I have some normal cards, which I'm trying to phase out. And the reason I'm phasing out these normal cards is, like I mentioned, you want to include less information. You want to just remember the concepts and the key ideas rather than the string of words connected together. So lysosomes, peroxisomes. I actually don't know what peroxisomes are. They have hydrogen peroxide in them. I know that they're both about digesting things. So, So like I had the core ideas, but I didn't have the exact words. So I probably mentioned that as a hard. Okay. And again, yeah, there's a ton of keyboard shortcuts with all of Anki. Essay writing. Okay, there's a nice topic to talk about. At the moment, that's Rome. And if you don't want to be using Roam, I tried doing it through Notion, but I think Notion's more of a place for me where I want to keep my content, not where I want to write lots and lots of information. And particularly a reason for that is, yeah, I know that you can set up full width, but it just doesn't look right. It looks really different in Notion. So if I'm writing an essay, this is the old way that I used to do it. I essentially just have Word up. It's gonna work. Nope. Yep. So I'd have Word up, and then I'd have a second screen with all the pieces of information. And I don't really like the way that I write notes because I want to see if I can find an example for you, but it's really disjointed. No, that's the final one. Okay, I can't find it, but pretty much Roam is fixing up all my problems. I will just write in Word just ideas that come to my head in one long column of just dot points, and I lose what I'm wanting to actually remember, and then when I'm trying to sift through what's actually the good pieces of information, I find it really hard to find those pieces of information. So again, Roam is all about linking and particularly creating keywords, which are your core ideas in what you're writing. And that's how I'll set up my plan in Roam, and that will allow me to get through my essay writing a little bit more concrete. I think another nice thing as well is just like in Notion, you can have a page for something. When I find out, oh, okay, I want to mention this idea of active recall, well, I can include in here all of the references, like to the studies and, my take on it, like interesting things, other people's take on it, difficulties with it. So yeah, there's actually a lot of active recall is actually glorified quite a bit, but it is quite hard to pick up. So I will be making a video on that. Does anyone have any further questions? Because I do have to wrap up sort of soon. Let's see if I can find anything else that's kind of cool. Thanks. Does anyone have any questions just generally about how to take notes on Notion with active recall? Keeping on top of lectures and what you do in and out of class, that sort of stuff. How do you get into the habit of reviewing Notion topics? Good question. So, if you might notice, I've only covered 5.1 of my whole physiology course. Whereas in Notion, Anki is a daily thing, so I'm always covering content there, but I'm only covering the most important content in Anki. In an ideal world, you would, check do your repetitions of all your question banks for every course every now and then in increasing intervals, but that's that's way too much work. So I guess I just set this up, and since I'm getting to exam season soon, I'm thinking about just over a month out. So I'm going to start this again and really get into it. When I feel it's comfortable to start studying for my exams, this is the method I'm going to be going through. I'm going to be, say, oh, what have I found difficult? What haven't I covered in a long time? And I haven't covered anything. So, what 1 was quite easy for me. So 2 was easy for me. 3, we can see I've actually, highlighted some stuff here because I was really not on top of it. So let's say probably next week, I'm going to put down 3.1. I'll start there, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, 3.5. Usually in a study session, I want to get through one whole topic. But yeah, usually it depends how it goes. So this is, as someone mentioned, they love Google Sheets. This is the method that Ali uses for studying for exams when he did, but now he's adapted it over to Notion, and so have I. I'm a copycat. It's basically the same thing. It's just that you have to number and rate out of 5, how you felt with it, rather than just using color coding. And I think actually it looks a little bit nicer without all the color coding. In fact, the way that I use color coding is pretty much a highlight in terms of green, yellow, and red is a signal to me if I need to actually cover this before I go through doing some questions. And that's something you might notice as well with covering content is you're going to have some active recall questions that you made and you have no idea about the topic itself. Try not to review the content if you have no idea what it is. Actually, this usually happens when you're going through content for the first time, or first repetition of your content. Just go ahead and read a textbook or actually watch some videos on understanding how the process works, then go back to your questions. Because there's no point asking yourself the questions and just memorizing what's down. You actually want to understand what's going on, and then the memorization comes after. I think, with all this active recall stuff, the understanding process has not been emphasized nearly enough as it should be. And I think the reason for that is because it's a little bit harder to convey how to learn and understand things for the first time. It's a little bit easier to just provide a framework for how to memorize, because memorization for content-based subjects, biomedicine, all that sort of stuff is pretty similar. But when you're telling someone to understand and learn something, it's really quite difficult to make a framework that works for maths, English, and bio. They're so completely different. For the one plug, yes, I do have a YouTube channel. My name is Archer Newton, and I upload videos about studying, productivity, my workflow, and how I did well, I think. Yeah. I'm happy to just go through some more stuff since this stream is pretty much over. I'm just answering some Q&As.
What was the channel name again?
It's in library chat. So I have notes on Word. What kind of notes do you have on Word? Like textbook notes. Oh, okay. Right. So this is my next video. I don't write notes at all in a conventional, traditional way. The way that I use, and this is, I'm going to pretty much give you the whole spiel now. You can leave if you want. But the Cornell note-taking system is the way that I take notes now. Essentially, I use an adapted version of this. And what you do, thanks for the subscription, is you write all your textbook notes on one side. Now, you can do this in Word as well, but I think you can organize it a little bit better within Notion, because you can have your course here and then have the subtopics and have the subpages and everything like that. Whereas in Word, you just got to have a folder with lots of documents in it. You're gonna probably end up like my friends, where they have 50 Word documents open at the same time. It's crazy, and they don't want to ever restart their computer. Heading back to Cornell, so you write your textbook notes here, everything that your lecturer is saying or what you're reading, and you try and record the important parts. Don't try and do it verbose. Don't try and just copy everything your lecturer is saying or everything you're reading, because not everything is important. Not everything is examinable. You don't want to waste your time with that sort of information. And it's really difficult when you're dealing with those content-based subjects. And the other thing you do is you have a column over here, which includes the recall keywords, or the way that I like to do it is writing questions for yourself. And just to preface all of everything that I'm talking about, this has actually been shown to be effective within studies, comparing people who are doing this compared to rereading their notes or writing conventional notes. But in all of this, it is actually quite difficult to compare how people take notes, because everyone writes different quality of notes. Some people are more active with the way that they're writing their notes, and there are people who are more passive in the way that they write their notes and just kind of follow along with what's being said. But I think something that slows me down when in lectures and stuff is I always try and understand while I'm in the lecture, which means I fall behind quite easily. But yeah, understanding is so important. So I might just leave a note for myself saying, come back to this and actually understand it. Okay. The interesting thing about the Cornell note-taking method as well is that it has a summary section. I'm a bit iffy about summaries. Again, the way that summarization is generally regarded as something that is low utility, so something that doesn't necessarily, it's not really a feasible method for learning correctly and memorizing easily. And that's because, again, people vary quite in a large magnitude in the way that they summarize their notes. Some people are good with it, some people are not. And in fact, studies say that most of us are pretty bad at it because we haven't done a course on like how to actually summarize. We just kind of, get the main points and put them out. The problem with it, again, is that it feels good, but it's not pushing you. Yeah, and what I'd like to say about the summary section, in particular with Cornell's note-taking system. So I'm not a fan of summarization, but within the Cornell note-taking system, it's a nice way of introducing your notes, if that makes sense. So, like I just have a title in my question banks, but you can have something here that tells you a little bit about what the questions are going to be about here. Okay, and again, summarization is bad for memorization, but it's definitely a feasible thing in internalizing, in making that mental model in your head. It's definitely there is definitely a benefit in summarizing there. But yeah, it's really hard to get that across with what summarization is good for and what it is bad for. Okay. So let's take a look at my adapted thing of the Cornell note-taking system. I've shown it quite a bit already, but essentially all I do is, instead of my summarizations, I'll have my scoped out subtopics and stuff. Let's look at something recent. I've actually covered this as soon as I learnt it, like the night of when I learnt it. And that's what you should typically do, but things get in the way and you don't want to always study as well. I just write the question and I include the answer. And there's not really much else besides that. It gets the work done, it gets it done quickly. It does all the same things as the core part of Cornell's note-taking system. And again, the thing I haven't mentioned with the Cornell note-taking system is you have this recall section in your notes. You need to cover the notes in one way or another, like, I don't know, set the color of the text to white or black so you don't see it. Then look at the recall section and then try and recall the notes that were associated with it. Obviously, it's a little bit harder when you say keyword, because like if you're looking at this 6 months after learning it, you're not going to know what your keyword is referring to. So there is an art, and that's something I like to mention as well. There is an art in writing a good question for yourself. So you want to be very specific, but you don't want to give too much of a hint. Yes, I'm gonna close this up pretty quick now because we got to make space for the next stream, and so yeah, definitely stay around for that. So I'll just ask my question specifically: what are the 3 structures of points? And that's just the stuff. But for concepts, you might need to be a little bit more open, so that you can, like, let's say you had an extended response question at the end of your exam. you want to have a question like, what's with hormone secretion? And then you just give the whole spiel about everything you know about hormone secretion. And then you can check it with all your notes and see how you go. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. Yes, I did just get a question about things, but I don't think we have time for that. You can send me a message and I'll talk to you. And that applies to anyone as well. If you have any questions, just send me a message. I probably won't respond to it instantly, but I'll get to it eventually. All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right, I'm probably going to start the stream exactly 11, so everyone has time to get here. In the meantime, I'm going to go test the setup, see if it works. So I'll be back when it's 11. Okay, so I think I'm going to start now because it's 11. I think pretty much everyone that go to Carb is here. I'm just going to pin the productivity class one last time. Okay, so welcome guys. I'm going to be talking about how to plan your day more efficiently, and in particular, introduce you guys to the way I plan my day, often a day in advance. There's going to be 3 things that I'm going to be going through. And these 3 things are the importance of doing it a day in advance, the importance of ordering, and how to avoid burning out. So going through each of those individually, first, we'll plan the day in advance. So this is kind of the things that you need to think about when you do this. You want to take 5 minutes to list out all the things that you want to get done for the following day. You want to write down how long you estimate each of the tasks will take. Check your calendar and block out the unavailable times you have during the day. And finally, you must check that you have enough time in a day to fit everything in. Now, all of this might sound a bit abstract to you, and so we're going to go through an example. So this is Jack. He's a university student, and he studies chemistry. He plays a lot of piano in his spare time, and he's recently begun learning how to program. So Jack kind of goes through all of these steps, step by step, and we'll go through his logical thinking processes. So first, he takes 5 minutes to list out all the things that he wants to get done for the following day. So those are the things he comes up with. He needs to finish writing his lab report, practice the piano and programming, do his routine task. He wants to revise chemistry, and of course, there's the other stuff like shower and mealtime. Next, he writes down how long each of the tasks will take. Now, this is going to really depend on you as a person because these are probably tasks you've done before, so you'll know how long they'll take. If not, then you can come up with a good estimate for them. So Jack, in this case, from his experience, writes out how long he thinks each task will take. And he makes a note that all of this total up to 9 hours. He moves on to the next step, which is to check his calendar and block out the time where he has other commitments. So he checks his calendar and he sees that he has one lecture and one lab the following day. The lecture runs from 10:30 to 11:30, and his labs run from 2 to 5 p.m. So he makes a start on his timetable. So I put the lecture and the labs in the timetable, and note here I've used sticky notes for this. Because this is meant to be something that is done on a daily basis, you want the whole process to be as simple as possible. So in this case, something like sticky notes is going to be really good because it has enough functionality for you to use it very simply. And also note how I didn't include what time they end, only the time they start. This is also to save time. It will be assumed once the whole timetable is complete that the end time of the previous activity will be the start time of the next activity. So the next step is he checks that he has enough time in the day to fit everything in. So Jack is a hardworking student, and he decides that he wants to work from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day, which, if you do the maths, is 13 hours. We know that lab takes up 3 hours and his lecture is 1 hour. And from what he calculated earlier, the things that he needs to do add up to 9 hours, which actually adds up to 13 hours perfectly, so his schedule will fit. But if that's not the case, if you, for example, have too many things to do during the day, you can postpone some of the things to the following day, or alternatively reduce the time for those tasks. And inversely, if you don't have enough things to do during the day, or you can either give yourself a break and give yourself more time to do each of those tasks, or you can actually bring forward some of the tasks you had for the following day to do tomorrow. And also, you can flexibly adjust what your definition of a working day is. Say if you're normally working from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., but say if you've got an exam coming up in a week's time, you might want to, just for a short period of time, extend your study time until, for example, 7 p.m. or 9 p.m. so you can fit more revision. So now Jack has all his schedule, and he knows that it'll fit into the slot. But the problem is, how do we arrange those tasks? And that brings on to the second point, the importance of ordering. So this is one philosophy that is very useful that I always follow, is you want to always start off with the easiest task to assign. If you start up assigning tasks that you're 100% sure that are definitely going to go in that slot, then your whole process will be more optimized at the end. In Jack's case, he's a very routine person, and he knows how he'll eat lunch at 1 p.m. and he'll eat dinner at 6 p.m. And that's the same every day. So he puts that down onto his calendar. If you actually have lunch and dinner at the same time every day, you can just have that on the default when you're checking a calendar. But in Jack's case, sometimes he might have other commitments around those times, so he can't just put them down every day. Another really important point is you want to put your hardest task when you are at your most alert / most productive. Different people will work differently. Some people are very productive in the mornings, and some people are night owls and they're very productive at night. In Jack's case, he knows that he's not very productive in the morning, but he's really productive at night. And he looks at all the different things that he has to do. he notices that both programming and writing his lab report is going to take a lot of mental effort, whereas his other tasks, such as revision, piano, are less mentally draining. He also makes a note that he also can't play the piano too late because it'll wake up his neighbors. So in Jack's case, if we think about it, we want to make sure that he gets his more challenging tasks done during the night, where he is more productive, and put the less intensive tasks earlier in the day. So he starts off with now the easiest task to assign, which is programming and lab report, and he puts them last in the day. And as you can see, Jack is starting to fill up his timetable. He's having to do his lab report from 7 to 9 and programming from 9 to 10, which runs up his day. We still have some gap and some tasks to assign, and those are listed on the right. So he has a gap from 9 to 10:30, 11:30 to 1, 5 to 6, and 4 tasks left to assign. And now, since you've done kind of all the obvious choices, the rest is up to your personal preference. You can kind of just drop whatever task you want to do in the time slots. In Jack's case, he opted to do the routine stuff early in the morning because that's when he thinks he's at his least productive because he hasn't quite woken up yet. And do his slightly more intensive task of revision later during the day because it's not very challenging, but he wants to do them where he's feeling a bit more productive. So if you follow this kind of step-by-step process each day and kind of really plan out your day efficiently, sure, you'll be very efficient. But the downside to that is if you do this repeatedly, for example, for too long a stretch, you might start getting burnt out. And here are a few tips that I would suggest to avoid this from happening. The first suggestion is to put exercise in between big blocks of revision. Say if you have 2 kind of revision or studying tasks back to back that are like an hour or 2 hours each, not only should you rest in between in like 50-minute breaks, but you should always, if you also plan to exercise, it's often a good idea to put exercise in between just so you have a change of pace. Alternatively, if exercise is too strenuous for you, yoga is another good option as well. Some people also try meditation apps, such as Headspace and Calm. And I've also recently begun using this app called Elevate, which is actually completely free. And it has mind games that kind of stimulate your mind and help you develop your skills in reading, writing, speaking, and maths. You can also revise with friends who will hold you accountable and support you throughout kind of your learning process. And the last point, which is actually really important, is to switch up your schedule day to day. This is why I don't really like those timetable where kind of you make a weekly thing and you follow through the same thing each week. Sure, you might be slightly more efficient because your body is getting used to kind of the same routine that you put on it week on week. But the issue is unexpected things can come up in life, and you might find that you need to set aside time to do certain tasks that you didn't anticipate. And it's quite unlikely that, for example, your the task that you're doing each week will be at the same time. So it can really make keeping to like a strict regimen of your timetable quite difficult. Switching your schedule day to day is also really good because it allows you to identify yourself. If you feel like you're getting, for example, you're getting a bit stressed and burnt out, you can dial back on your revision schedule for the following day and kind of plan things out as you go along. But yeah, this is an example of my timetable that I did for today. So I did this after I prepped the lesson this morning. As you can see, I've crossed that out on the timetable. It's really simple. Just do it through the sticky note, and it literally takes less than 5 minutes to complete. But yeah. Does anyone have any questions? You're welcome to either type in the library chat or just unmute and speak. If there's no questions, that's fine. But yeah. Yes, definitely. So the good thing about having a timetable like this is it allows you to kind of adjust your schedule according to your mindset at the time. So like I mentioned before, if you are feeling particularly stressed and don't feel like you can take on as much responsibility, you can dial back on the kind of the number of tasks that you're setting for yourself the following day. You can do that through the study hours as well. You can probably reduce the time, and you can assign yourself more time to do each task, so you have a more relaxed environment. Yes, so a lot of this comes onto discipline. But how I would suggest you do this is you need to set yourself a study time and then stick to it. So say if you say I want to work from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. the following day, you stick to that. You make reasonable estimations of how long each task will take. And then if you don't fill up all the times, you have to kind of get more tasks so it fills up the remaining time. The good thing about a timetable such as this is because it's dynamic and it's changing each day, you actually feel quite satisfied as you're going through the day and just following the timetable and ticking them off one by one. And hopefully that'll be able to give you some motivation. Okay. If there's no other questions, then we're probably going to wrap this up. Don't forget to donate to the charity if you find this session useful. It's all for a good cause. Yeah, link is in the library chat.